as we're still trying to grasp it, 25 years later, we're still trying to understand the role that content can play in travel in a technological era. We're about to break the rules again with generative and agentic AI, where we're going to change completely how content can be consumed, how it can be displayed, how it can be rewritten, how it can be generated, how it can be pushed. And we still haven't figured out the old rules.
As WIT marks its 20th year in 2025, we turn the spotlight on our community to tell their stories and share their views on the evolution of online travel and technology. Conversations on Turning 20 is the collective story of WIT. As a Chinese saying goes, 以古为鉴，可以知形体. By using history as a mirror, one can understand the rise and fall of things.
I stumbled into travel by accident in March 2000 on the eve of the dot-com bust that happened in April 2000. Previously, I was a lawyer, and I ended up working at Expedia by sheer chance. Though technically the travel industry is the family business for me. My stepfather worked for Qantas for 40 years. So travel was a constant industry in my house, but my journey to it was an accident, a very joyous accident in March 2000. And I was working at Expedia in London, where it was truly the earliest days of travel. It was also the end of this dot-com madness period that people were over-investing all sorts of things. And the early travel, online travel, was very simply putting a skin on the existing technical infrastructure. So let's put a booking engine on top of the GDS. And let's just use the GDS because it's already age-old technology. The connectivity is there for flights. Let's put a skin on that and make a search engine that people can use. Hotels were an afterthought. Car rental an afterthought. Meta search didn't exist. It was about putting a UI search interface. And of course, we've come a little bit since then, but still, really, if you look at it, 25 years later, a lot of what we got is a skin on the existing back-end technology, which shows the great amounts of leaps and bounds that are still to come. I remember a couple of very interesting things from that time because this early days of online travel were also coincided with the early days of mobile. And there was a type of technology lovingly referred to as WAP, which had a different meaning in 2000 to what I think it means culturally now. It had a meaning of a wireless application protocol. And it was the very early instances of mobile on feature phones. So how do you do the mobile internet on a phone that is just text-based? And it took the world by storm for about 6 months until everyone could see that it was completely unusable. And we had to wait another 7 years, 8 years until the birth of the iPhone before we truly got a shot at mobile. But those early days of mobile, I suppose those early days of mobile proved something for us in travel. That what can seem like overnight, i.e. mobile, can take 7 years to happen. So there's a learning there about how the speed of technology is not necessarily as fast as we think it is, because a lot of mistakes and errors and issues can happen along the way as we're still building a knowledge base. Now, there's a question mark whether things are faster now, and we can talk about AI in other parts of this discussion, but I think that's a big one, that wireless took 7 years, mobile took 7 years from the wireless application protocol to the iPhone and the app before we truly saw that change. The other thing that sticks into my mind, interestingly, once you get old and you watch things, is the turning points of tragedy in an industry. On reflection, we can look, for instance, to 9/11 and the attacks on America as a turning point in online travel. What happened, and I think it's well known during that time, travel was grounded across America and most of the Northern Hemisphere and other parts of the world as a result. There was a panic that the world had changed. It did. And that caused a ripple effect in accommodation. And the ripple effect in accommodation is a lot of hoteliers were seeking channels to expand, and they lent into the mobile channel. Now, I think that would have happened by itself anyway, but I think there's clear evidence that 9/11 accelerated the leaning in of hotels to the online channel, which accelerated online travel. And of course, here we are in 2025, and we know the impacts of tragedy again. Here in Asia, we did 3 years of COVID from 2020 through to most of 2023. And we know the accelerant effect it had on online shift. It caused a step change in people's use of the phone and a step change in people's use of online travel. So travel and tragedy have a constant linking because travel's so linked to the rest of the world. There are clear parts in the history of online travel where we can link tragedy to step changes in online travel. My early days in travel were working directly for American companies. You can guess their names. One was headquartered in Seattle, the other was headquartered in Chicago. And so I spent my time living in Asia, but working under the rules of companies based in America. Whereas now I find myself, surely my parent company is based out of Norwalk/Amsterdam, but everything Agoda needs to do is run out of Bangkok. And so the heart of how I think about online travel has changed dramatically because I'm right here in Asia talking about Asia. And those early days of Asia were all talk about China. China was going to be the big, success story, and that was the big powerhouse. And of course, that's true. But now we find ourselves, in this 25th year into this century, and Japan, Korea, Taiwan, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, everywhere's got a story. Everywhere's got a local ecosystem in terms of the digital economy. Everyone's got local players that are strong and powerful in their own regard, and everyone's got international challenges trying to make a go of it. So the online travel story has become a very global story. I often say about Agoda, for example, our online story is a global company with an Asian heart. You can say that a lot about what's going on in Asia. If we think a little bit about travel itself and the online travel, I think there's a couple of interesting elements that happened that online travel did to travel. One of the ones was we unexpectedly, in online travel, broke the rules of how content and advice would work. And what I mean by that is pre-online travel, you got content, advice, and booking from the same source. You went to an offline travel agency, they handed you a brochure, you asked them questions, they gave you the answers, and those answers led to you booking with that offline travel agent. I'd like to go to Disneyland, I'd like to go to the Maldives, wherever it was. The person giving the advice, the person with the content was the same as the booker. The online world broke that model, changed that model, and it put content a little bit to the left, places where you could find advice, be they individual blogs or aggregator sites like a TripAdvisor, and you put bookings on the right at OTAs like us, my brothers and sisters in Amsterdam, and so forth. And in the middle, you're stuck Google. In the middle between content and booking, you're stuck search. And that was very different to offline. And that caused a lot of issues in content, not just in travel. We see this in the whole world. The media world, content rules had to change. Newspapers, news, books, everything had to change. And in travel, that required a whole different way of thinking about the rules of content. As we're still trying to grasp it, 25 years later, we're still trying to understand the role that content can play in travel in a technological era. We're about to break the rules again with generative and agentic AI, where we're going to change completely how content can be consumed, how it can be displayed, how it can be rewritten, how it can be generated, how it can be pushed. And we still haven't figured out the old rules. We understood the rules for content offline. You go to a person, you'd ask them questions, they give you the answer, you book. We started to figure out in the middle. We still hadn't figured out in the middle how content was going to work. And now we're going to go into a new age where content's going to be completely rewritten and revamped by a machine. And we're still going to figure out how that content story is going to work. One of the other things we learned during this history is that travel's unbreakable. You can't break it. I talked in my other comments about how tragedy is linked to travel. You can't break it. Doesn't matter how many times you blow up Bali, Australians will keep on going. No matter how many times you get sick, people will keep traveling. No matter how many times you attack a place, people keep traveling. And that is unbreakable. But what's hasn't been solved in that is helping people figure out when they are concerned or lost or looking for the new, help them figure out the new. So discovery is still not solved in travel. Advice is still not solved in travel. Recommendations are still not solved in travel. When someone comes to Bangkok that's a friend of mine, they don't Google where to go in Bangkok. They write to me personally and say, Tim, where should I go in Bangkok? Because we haven't cracked the code on discovery and advice. And that's a story and a lesson for us to work on as we go to the next parts of travel. Travel is one of the largest industries in the world. It's an industry that has, attracted money and financing from across the spectrum. The Booking Holdings Group is famously built together by the acquisition of some incredible companies, Booking.com itself, Kayak, and of course, Agoda. So there's a huge role that capital markets have played in constructing very powerful and global travel companies. We've seen the acquisition activities of Trip.com Group, of Expedia Group. All of them have spent a lot of time trying to compile very powerful machines in travel, very large global machines. And so we have to acknowledge the role that the capital markets have played in building this industry. I think back to, the days when I was working for the Orbitz Group and first heard of the name Bookings NL, for example, as they were back then, and first heard of the names of Active Hotels, first heard of the names of Agoda, and now finding myself inside that organization, and the brands have changed or merged, but the determination to build very creative and scale travel products continues. When we think about what's next in the 21st century, one interesting things about technology is, I've heard a number of futurists say, technology is a great creator of the need for legal protection. Put another way, you don't think you need a certain law until you've got a technology that allows you to do something you didn't think you could do. The obvious example is we didn't need road rules until we had cars, because we didn't really have a problem. And now with technology, we're creating more and more needs for the law to catch up. Data privacy, for example, is going to be a huge part about the way in which we manage the future of the world. We need to get a balance right. There's a balance we have to get here. Human beings want to share parts about them so that the industries at while can service them. At the same time, there are protections needed. So I think a lot of the future of travel and all commerce is going to be getting that balance right. And trying to figure out how to get that to work. We're entering an era, my famous prediction, where at some point drones are going to be ubiquitous. At some point drones are going to be as common as a mobile phone. What happens then? What happens where everybody's got a camera flying above their head? What does the world look like? How do we manage people's content and privacy in that time? How do we help consumers protect themselves when that's going on? And a result, we're going to also, that means we've started, at that point, people will be collecting more data about themselves and others than are imaginable. And now we see with the age of AI, we've also got a question of authenticity. It's possible that you're not actually talking to me, you're talking to an AI version of me. And it's possible that you could adjust this video and make me look like Brad Pitt. And it will be Brad Pitt giving this. And no one would know. No one have any way of knowing whether it was the real me or Brad Pitt or whoever was giving this discussion. And how are we going to manage authenticity? And if there's one thing we know about consumers and travel, is the desire for authenticity, the desire for that experience to be real. I can tell you generally, I would consider myself about the world, travel or no, I consider myself an annoyed optimist, a cranky optimist. And what I mean by that is I'm an optimist because legitimately, right now is the best time to be alive. Every point in the future, in the past, had something probably worse than right now. There's something that's just improved recently in some part of the world that makes it a little bit better on the whole than right now. Obviously, there'll be plenty of people who that's not true for. I'm talking about across the board. For an example, tolerance is better now than it was before. Thailand, about a month ago, we're at February 2025 when I'm discussing, Thailand a month ago had its first marriage equality marriages. People got married for the first time in Thailand. That is better than it was a year ago. But I'm annoyed. The optimist in me celebrates that, but I'm annoyed and I'm cranky because every one of us can sit around and see things that could be better, faster, could be improved. There'd be where the respect, tolerance, and equality could have a role to play, where we could be nicer. So I think when I look to the world and I think 25 years into the 21st century, there's a lot of great things. I get annoyed. That's the optimist. But the annoyed person in me sees the things that could change faster. And that's a little bit like travel. And the optimist in me believes that travel is unstoppable and travel is unbreakable, and looks at the things that can now be done in travel 25 years later after I started and 20 years after WIT, and sees the incredible things that have improved. But I see the list of things we could do. I see the list of opportunities that could be worked on. The link between discovery, content, and booking that can be worked on. The plumbing so that we can see better inventory and more of it. So we can provide consumers with more information before they arrive, during their trip, and after their trip. We can make check-in. Check-in should disappear. Check-in should be gone. The constraints in the world that you have to check in at 3 o'clock and check out by 10 o'clock, that should be gone. The fact you can't book interconnecting rooms should be gone. The fact that that flights get overbooked and get cancelled should be. There's so many things that the annoyed part of the optimist in me thinks we could still work on. But the optimist is thrilled that travel now is as good as it's ever been. But the annoyed part of me says I'm excited a little bit that we've got things we can work on to build more in the travel history. Yeah. If I think about what I think travel looks like 20 years from now, again, it's impossible. But I know some things will be different. Actually, no, the first thing that won't be different, travel. Unstoppable, unbreakable. Humans will always do it. Transport rules that we think of now will be broken in 2045. I don't know what that means. I mean, we're going to be flying places faster. We're going to be getting to places quicker. And there'll be places we can't get to right now that we can get to deeper in the ocean, further up in the sky. So the rules of transport that we think we know will be changed in 20 years, because we've seen how much they've changed in the previous 20 years. Anyone told you could do a non-stop flight commercially from Australia to England would have called you an idiot 20 years ago, but now Qantas does it every day. So we know that the rules of transport are going to be changed. And we know that technology and travel will create different immersive experiences. The historical tour of a place is going to be different in 2045. What you can see sitting in Venice, sitting in Egypt, sitting in Siem Reap, what you can see and learn historically about the place that you are in will be changed. So the in-destination experience will be very different as we combine technology and the location together. And then I suppose that's the secret, is it's the combination of those two things that will create an incredibly immersive. I don't know if it's going to be headsets or whatever, but I imagine me sitting there in Siem Reap looking at Angkor Wat, and something will be very different about my experience. I'll be dramatically more immersed in a combination of human and technology and location. There's something I can't imagine exactly what it'll look like, but we can sort of hope and think. So the rules of how we get there and where we can go will be different. The rules of technology and the immersive experience will be different. And I think there's going to be new rules on who can go where, when. You know, as we get beyond 8 billion people, we're going to have to manage the way the world works and travels and migrates. So I think there's going to be some new rules on who can go where, when, and how, as we strive to manage the ability for this huge amount of humans to go to the places we want to go to.